What I'll spend my time in is walking through our journey of creating the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems, but focus primarily on the government interventions. And even though we are a small foundation, we are seeing very active engagement and very intense engagement both at the center and at the state level. And that shows how much government is eager to participate in this journey. Before I do that, I sort of wanted to answer two questions. So the first question is, why should government care about innovation? And I think innovation today is the key driver of economic growth. And the government job is around economic growth, which leads to job creation. Today, globally, not only in India, but everywhere, job creation is a very critical challenge. So it's very important for government to be engaged in innovation, especially in the knowledge economy. The second question is, does government intervention help? So whenever we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, everybody talks about Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley is actually very good at solving the last mile problem and also taking the credit for solving the last mile problem. I mean, if you look today at the internet economy, that is the booming economy in Silicon Valley is leveraging it, but internet was really created by DARPA, and they invested in DARPA. If I double click down into Silicon Valley and look at Google, so we will look at Google and Apple and Uber now, the three of the most large companies. Google's search algorithm was funded by NSF. Then you stole my thunder. Apple, as you say, if you open Apple, you said there are 70% of Apple component, including touchscreen and Siri, were funded by government organization. And without GPS, Uber would not exist today. And that's not actually only limited to tech companies. If you also look at outside of tech and healthcare, close to 60% of all game-changing drugs were invested by NIH. Earlier you heard someone talk about the biotech industry started investment, or the VC industry in biotech only came into existence 15 years after the investment that was done by NIH and others. And the genome project right now, NIH is the leader. So it's very, very critical for government to engage in in fact, I equate government to angel investors with very, very deep pockets. So they have billions of dollars of angel money to invest. And that's what they do. It's very high risk, but there's the high reward as well. So going back to the entrepreneurial and ecosystem journey that the foundation started, and I will inject what the government has been doing all along. So we started our journey almost 12 years ago, somewhere around 2003. When we looked at 2003, and we are today in 12 countries, but we were primarily focused on India 12 years ago. And India was embarking on this journey of adding 1 million people a month to the workforce. Actually, the 1 million people a month were going to turn 18 and be eligible for work. About 7 to 8 million actually would seek work. Not everybody that turned 18 would seek work. So we were talking about a huge, and India would do that for the next 3 decades. So we are still, not even halfway through that journey, where 1 million people a month are job sort of eligible. So that's on the supply side. If you look at the demand side, 10 years ago, entrepreneurship was a 4-letter word. Nobody knew entrepreneurship. We had to rely on Tatas and Birlas and Ambanis to create jobs. Most large companies don't grow by adding people. They grow by increasing productivity. And it's a known fact that 70% of all new job growth happens through startups and small businesses. So we had this dilemma of how do you create an army of entrepreneurs in India. And as Padma just pointed out, if we if we don't find job for our youth, we would have a very large terrorist industry in the country. So that's how our first program started, the National Entrepreneurship Network. Basically, the idea was to educate and inspire college students to look at entrepreneurship as an alternative. So our first founding members were IIT Bombay, IIM Ahmedabad, and others. Fast forwarding to where we are today is, so we, over the last 10 to 12 years, we have trained over 3,000 faculty to teach entrepreneurship courses. On an average, about 100,000 students across 350 institutes take our courses. So these are both classroom courses as well as practicums. And the way we measure success in this program is every year on graduation, we look at how many of our students are starting companies. And then we track them to see what is the average jobs that they are creating. So on an average now, our students are creating 1,000 companies a year. But you know, the failure rate is very high. Even the VC Silicon Valley failure rate is 80%. And our students and the entrepreneurs here are thrown in an environment that is not very friendly towards entrepreneurs. Financial ecosystem is weak, policies are not supportive, and these are all first generation entrepreneurs that need a lot of hand-holding and mentoring. So we launched on another program for entrepreneur support. So before I go there, to inject, so now what the government of India is doing, and actually a lot of the state government as well, they are taking entrepreneurship program that we have developed over the last 10 years. The central government has signed an agreement to take our program to 3,000 colleges. And the fact that now we are scaling to 3,000, we are transitioning from a classroom-based, teacher-based program to a MOOC-based blended learning program that we will deliver starting January. Similarly, if we look at entrepreneur support, we are now working to create city-based ecosystems of, if you look at Silicon Valley, you have Stanford and Berkeley kind of inspiring students to become entrepreneurs. When you step out, you have an army of mentors, an army of angel investors. Every social gathering, you're bound to run into a founder or someone who's working in a startup. So you learn a lot in that process. And it's important for India to create such city-based ecosystems. So we are going into cities that we have started these universities, working to create local mentors, working to create local investors. We are just about working with Niti Aayog Niti Aayog has already announced they are going to create 100 incubators, and they are investing 10 crore per incubator. But they will also need a network of mentors and investors for the incubatees to succeed. So we are building those, and in this day and age, connect them all through a technology platform. So you will have network of mentors who can be connected to mentee through a technology platform. Think of something like a Yelp-like platform where they can rate each other. So the right side of mentors bubble up. Similarly, you need an investor network. You know, India has a lot of HNIs for whom the first 25 lakhs or 50 lakhs is play money, but they don't know how to find deal structure. And you have done a phenomenal job of creating angel investors. But we need 5,000 angel investors. So we built a three-day training program for HNIs to become angel investors. So they understand how to structure deal, how to evaluate deal, and then more importantly, they need to connect to entrepreneurs. So again, we will create a sort of another technology platform to connect mentors to investors. In all of this, Niti Aayog is participating, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship is participating. So that's our entrepreneurship journey. Our next journey is on innovation. So if you look at innovation, India is now the top 5 economy of the world. But when it comes to innovation, I think the recent ranking, we were 66. Prior to that, we were 78. China has just gone into the top 25 economy of the world. So we are certainly nowhere there. On the other hand, when you look at global organization, you look at Google is led by an Indian, Microsoft is led by an Indian, the biotech lab in the University of San Diego is led by an Indian. So why is it that Indians have to leave India to become global leaders? So we have two experiments going, one at IIT Bombay and the other at the National Center for Biosciences, where we have created a physical infrastructure that is equivalent to anywhere in the world, equip it with the best equipment that is required, but to bring in that mindset of long-term innovation and away from the mindset of first in India, best in India, to first in the world, best in the world. To make that happen, the principal investigators come from, so in the case of NCBS, it comes from Stanford and University of Kyoto. We have picked a very narrow segment, stem cell research for cardiac and neural diseases. Now 150 PhD postdocs are working with them. Similarly, at IIT Bombay, we have biosciences and biomedical devices, low cost. And as you heard Professor Khakkar say, we have integrated CMU to work with them. So we'll get not only faculty exchanges, but we try to get faculty to spend 3 years, 6 years here to lead the effort. So that's one part of the innovation. Again, in both of these, while we put in some money, Department of Biotechnology is funding another 95% of what we contribute. So it accelerates that. The last part of the innovation, and then I'll stop, is if we look today at India, we have only two industries that we are proud of, the IT industry and the pharma industry. We have a massive defense import bill. We have a 50% energy bill. You name it, and we are reliant on other countries. And how do you solve that? How do you catalyze a sector? And that's where my friend here comes in. And so we have borrowed the SBIR program from US. We are basically, the idea is to fund large number of very small grants in the beginning in very specific sectors, and within the sectors the ministry would identify key areas. So import substitution might be one area, and these grants are given to small businesses so that they can then lead with the goal of leading to commercialization. If you look at small businesses in India, only 5% of small businesses are more than 10 employees. China's number is more than 30% of their small businesses are more than 100 employees. So we have an enormous opportunity to grow our small business. We have multiple proposals with Ministry of Defense, Energy, Transport, and Niti Aayog just last week agreed to be the sort of the flag bearer of this initiative across these multiple verticals.